Welcome to the Parenting Puzzle Podcast with Dr. Daniela Owen, the podcast where we attempt to solve the parenting puzzle together.
Hi, guys. Super excited today. We are about to do our third 1, 2, 3 edition of the Parenting Puzzle Podcast with Dr. Daniela Owen. So we're super excited today. Have a great podcast for you. So we thought the information that we had with Sarah on the first time talking about co-parenting and some of the challenges with that we really enjoyed that conversation, and there's so much more to it. So today we're going to continue with that. Let's call it part 2 of the co-parenting conversation. So we got somebody coming on the Speedster Squad hotline. So we're super excited about that. Dr. D, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So
great.
We've endeavored for the first 2 to try to keep these a little bit shorter. We want to give people content that they can digest and get the really good feedback and the helpful resources quickly. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit less and get to the information a little bit quicker. So I said we jump right into it. Are you okay with that, Dr. D?
Sounds wonderful.
Katie, you out there?
I'm here.
All right, Katie, I got to tell you real quick. You are the second person ever on the Speedster Squad hotline for the podcast. You know who the first was?
Your wife.
That's right. So you're number 2, and you're gonna be you're my second favorite person ever on the podcast. So you're doing great, and you're probably gonna stay number 2. So just so everybody knows, Katie is my sister, just like me. She's in a blended family. She has some of her own challenges that she goes through day to day, just like I do. And I think I love this topic because this whole podcast, The Parenting Puzzle, is about providing resources and tools to people. That's the whole purpose behind it, right? Me included and everybody else out there. I think this topic, even more than 20 years ago, is very, very critical. So, Katie, why don't you introduce yourself? First name's fine, and we'll just answer your questions. Let's do this.
Hey, everyone. I'm Katie. I'm in a blended family that I love and adore. I have 2 of my own sons that are 5 and 2, and then I have a stepson that is 14 and will be 15 in March. So we have a teen in the house half the time. We have split custody. We have 14 and 14. So 14 days he's with us and 14 days he's not.
All right, sis. You got a question. We got a published author, an amazing person in general here to help us and help you navigate some of these challenges, because having a 14, almost 15-year-old, a 5-year-old, which we were just at his birthday party. Super great job with the birthday.
It was Thank you. It was fun.
Very fun. Dr. D, I was racing go-karts. And you got a 3-year-old in Daxi Paxi. All right. So
he'll be 3 in April. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your question?
I guess one of my biggest questions for Dr. D would be, a lot of times Kenny and I, my husband, don't always agree on how to handle situations when it comes to our 14-year-old. We don't agree on little things, and a lot of times we don't agree on big things. So that makes it difficult. And sometimes it feels harder than usual. I guess than my own kids, because I guess I have more control with my own children than my stepson. So that makes it difficult for our relationship sometimes, because I think one way and he thinks another way. And that's just difficult because, he also has a mom.
Right. Okay. So just a clarifying question. So the points at which you're having trouble agreeing on parenting topics or issues or challenges that come up with your husband related to your stepson, do you also have those same kind of challenges with your biological sons that you share, or is it really exclusive to being a stepmom?
Well, they're young. So it does make a little bit of a difference, but I noticed we still do differ very much
Okay.
on issues with our littles too.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that point.
Um,
So, it's really amazing because so many of the things that we do that are important to us, we learn about, we get trained on if they're related to a job or career. We spend a lot of time kind of doing learning, and parenting is just not really one of those things, right? So we
Right.
learn how to parent, number one, first and foremost, based on how we were parenting and what was modeled for us in our family of origin. And then we learn from friends and family and peers around us who are parenting kids in the same age range or maybe a little bit older, and we're kind of learning from them based on what they're showing us or sharing with us. And we read things and we learn from that. But there's no multi-week parenting course that we all get the same
Right.
information on. So it can be really tricky because if your husband was parented differently than you and your family of origin, you're both coming to this job with very different kind of training, if you will, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the thing that I really want to recommend is, I know this is time consuming and parents don't have a lot of time, but this is a really, really worthwhile thing to spend time on. So I would really encourage you at a time when you can be distraction free and interruption free to sit down with your husband and to think about three things. I really think this is going to help you smooth out some of those parenting wrinkles. The first thing you want to do is actually start by making a list. It doesn't have to be exhaustive. It can be 5, 6, 7 things. What are you doing well together as parents? What's rocking and rolling? And it can be everything from we really respect each other to we really love our Sunday afternoons at Chuck E. Cheese as a family, right? There's no right or wrong answer, but what's going well? Where is parenting feeling good to both of you?
Yeah.
Then the second, so you're starting from a place of connection, right?
Right.
And it's really good to have a conversation about what isn't working well, starting from finding the foundation of what is working well. It's going to give both of you more willingness to hear what the other one has to say. And it's also going to give you a little bit more bandwidth for hearing some of those hard things and sharing some of those hard things. So start from a place of connection, talk about what's going well, identify it, and check in there first. It's a really important first spot. The second thing you want to talk about is your parenting values. And this is a really good place. Usually don't talk about these things with our spouse, but this is a really good place to check in about what are the most important things to each of us as parents. And that can be anything from that our children feel loved above all, to that we're able to discipline our children and have polite, well-mannered children. There again is no right or wrong answer. It's just what matters most to you. And this is a place to be really honest with each other, because the more you can put that out there and see where those connect and where they differ, that's going to be really helpful for understanding where things are breaking down. So for the things that you connect, that's kind of an obvious, but for the things that you differ, that might be a little bit more conversation about, okay, are these fundamentally opposite? Can we make these work together? Is this value something that's really that important to you? Or is it maybe something you're willing to give on? Sometimes when we have these conversations, we're surprised our spouses are like, oh yeah, I like your values, right? And so sometimes it helps us get more of that connection right off the bat. And then
that makes sense.
That makes sense? Okay, cool.
Yes.
And then the third part of the conversation is, where are things breaking down? What are we not agreeing on, or what's happening that's causing those moments in our parenting relationship where we're not feeling connected? So is it just that you're missing communicating about something, or is it just that you didn't realize one thing was really important, for example, to your husband, that is so important and so essential that you now can kind of base some of your parenting choices through that lens or through that framework? It will also help you kind of problem solve through those areas where something really isn't working well together. So is there a specific thing that comes to the top of your mind related to the 14-year-old where it tends to break down?
Um, Probably one of the biggest ones would be discipline, as far as like she's had discipline issues over the year, like behavioral, like at school, things like that. And I know when certain things like that happen, I'm like, this is what I want to happen. Boom, boom, boom. And he's just like, well, no, it's not that bad. Or it's, just things like that. And I'm like, no, this is what needs to be done. And he's like, no, it doesn't. So it's like on consequences, I'm a little harsher. He's very lenient. And then it just causes confusion because then my stepson also knows how I feel about things and he knows how his dad feels about things. And we have a very hard time compromising because I feel strongly about harsh discipline and he feels strongly about not harsh discipline. So that's one of our biggest issues, deciding on things like that. And we want to be like a united front to him, but it's very difficult when we just feel very different about consequences and rules and things like that.
Okay, that's really helpful to hear from you. So,
Yeah.
first of all, kudos to you for wanting to be a united front on discipline because that is
We tried.
but it's truly one of the things that we know from parenting research is one of the key most important things. And so consistency and between parents and within parents so that you're consistent each time with how you respond. That creates certainty for kids and it creates a feeling of security for them. And so parenting doesn't feel like, I don't know what I'm going to get this time, so I'm just going to see what happens, right? Which can actually feel very disorienting for kids and very stressful, even though that doesn't sound like it seems like, well, he'd like it when his dad's being lenient, but actually kids don't. They just like to know what's going to happen, just like we like to know as adults what's going to happen.
Right.
What are the rules? What are the laws? Imagine if, we got in the car on the road and every day the rules were a little bit different depending on, who was the sheriff on duty or something. That would be very confusing for us.
And that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Right. And the same thing is true for kids. And so if you can work together to say, here are the things that I'd like to try and here's why. And do you have any problem with any of those? And are those things that you would be willing to try? You can always do it as an experiment. You can set a time frame. Hey, we've got them for these 14 days. For the first 7 days, can we do it this way?
Okay.
And then check in and see how well that's working. And if it's not, we can shift gears for the second 7 days, but give it a week because things take time to kind of work their way in and you need the repetition and the continuity. But you could actually see if together through trying something out and start with something simple so that it's not everything different, but that you're just trying to get on the same page about one important thing that, he comes home and there was an issue at school. What's going to be our response? What's going to be the consequence or how are we going to respond to this? And then just try it for 7 days and then see how it's working. If it's working, I encourage you to keep the experiment going in that direction. If it's really not working, that's a time for you to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, that isn't working. What I had suggested isn't working. Let's try what you suggested. And you can always be flexible and try these different kinds of things. But if you are on the same page and your 14-year-old is getting the same response each time from you and the same response each time from your husband, and those two sets of responses are the same, it's going to become very clear what the rule and the consequences is. It's going to make it so much easier for him to adjust his behavior because he knows what to expect. And so in a way, I know it sounds kind of funny, but in a way, you're actually giving him a gift because he can act knowing the outcome. He can act with certainty about what's going to happen. And that's going to make him feel safe and secure. And it's going to make the two of you feel connected as parents. And those are good things for families.
Yes. No, that makes complete sense.
You know what I like about that advice, Dr. D, is it's not just for parents that are in co-parenting. It's for all parents, right? Mm-hmm. Having a plan and being united from a discipline standpoint affects every single parent, right?
For sure.
Problem that Katie's having with not being on the same page with discipline and things like that affects everybody. So yeah, great advice.
Absolutely. And so I just want to reiterate those points because I know I threw a lot at you, but the first part of the conversation is what are we doing well? What's working? What's good?
I
What
like
makes
that.
us
Yeah.
feel happy? So you're creating that foundation of positivity, of connection, of successes.
Yes.
And it sometimes when we reflect on that, it's kind of funny. We do the same thing when we're disciplining kids. We tend to notice the things that they're doing well or staying on top of. We don't tend to comment on them as much as the things that they're doing wrong, which we correct, right? And the same thing happens in our relationships with our spouses or our co-parents.
It's true.
Right? And so taking that moment to kind of connect and give yourself that kudos, that's a good
Hey,
place
we're
to
not
start
doing that bad.
Yeah, well, and I think it'll make it a lot easier to talk about that third part, right? So, and even the second part. So, what are our values? Where are we aligned? Where are we different? And how much do each of our differing values matter to us? So, is there a way that we can kind of compromise on those or blend those, or are we actually more aligned than we thought? And sometimes just expressing your values, that can be so helpful to realize, hey, we're really aligned about this. How we're doing it is different, but our values, the underlying core thing that matters is the same, then you're in good shape, right? Then you move on to that third conversation. Where are things breaking down? What are you doing? What am I doing? What are you saying? What am I saying? How do we get on the same page? Let's try it as an experiment. Let's see how it's going. If it's working, let's stay consistent. If it's not, let's switch gears and try something else consistently. So what you're doing and what I'm doing are the same and the same each and every time. Then you know what to expect, your kid knows what to expect, and everyone's going to feel good. And if you're applying this to the 14-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 2.5-year-old, those kids are also seeing each other, right? Because sometimes the risk, and this is a blended family specific thing, Jake, and so I really appreciate that you brought up what I'm talking about relates to all families, but specifically in blended families, if you're kind of getting into this trap with your partner of parenting your stepchild differently from your biological shared children, they're going to all see that, right? And then your shared children are going to kind of be reacting to the fact that they're getting different treatment than your stepchild. And that's also not good for kids because they all want to be able to expect the same thing, get the same response. Again, everyone feels secure and safe when that happens. And so give that a try.
Yes, for sure.
Great question.
That's great advice.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, I think that about sums it up. Katie, we really, really appreciate you being our second participant on the Speedster Squad hotline.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Dr. D, I'll give you the last word. Anything you want to say as we wrap this thing up?
I just want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, and don't forget to take a few minutes to think about and express your gratitude. Research shows that not only when we feel grateful in our hearts, but when we say it to those whom we're grateful for, or the things that we're grateful about, it's really good for us. It's really good for them. It helps everyone's mental well-being. So enjoy your gratitude of the season, and I'm grateful for both of you. Thank you for this great show, and
happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Dr. D, I'm grateful for you doing this with me and your books. So
my pleasure. Okay, everyone, have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It really helps us out and lets others discover the show.